When I first watched Friends, I was really young, so I was not paying any attention. It began airing a few years before I was born in 1994. TV viewers were introduced to Rachel, Ross, Phoebe, Joey, Chandler, and Monica, a group of 20-somethings living and loving in New York City. And yeah, it was fairly successful. But when I got older and actually understood the jokes and binged the whole series on streaming platform, one subplot really stood out to me, and that was Monica and Richard. Because Tom Selleck, he's really attractive. And there was something about him being older that I found very, very attractive. And I couldn't figure out why. For those that haven't seen the show and plan to watch, I'm about to spoil a 30-year-old plotline of Friends. Monica meets Richard at a party her parents are throwing. He's her dad's best friend. He was also her childhood eye doctor. He gave her lollipops when he looked at her eyes when she was a little child. And Monica, she's fully grown. She's Courtney Cox in the 90s. And Richard, well, he's Tom Selleck. He's very attractive, looking good. They reconnect, and there is immediate chemistry. And before long, they start dating. Now, Monica is about 26 or 27, for reference. That's how old I am. Richard is canonically 48. Now, Tom Selleck at the time was actually 50 or 51. Their canon age gap is 21 years. And yeah, it's jarring. And even the characters in the show make comments about it. But surprisingly, the relationship itself is so solid. Like, I rooted for them. Richard isn't manipulative. He doesn't infantilize her. They have mature, respectful conversations. The chemistry is real. They're very hot, quite honestly. And it's really one of Monica's healthiest relationships in the entire show. But there was a problem. Monica wanted kids. Richard was done. He already had grandkids. And this became a deal breaker for them. So they break up, and it's genuinely sad. No one's the bad guy, and they just want different futures. They try to be friends later, but it doesn't work because, again, it's Tom Selleck. But the original issue is still there, so they walk away for real this time. It's messy, but it's honest. And it left me thinking, was this story normalizing age gap relationships in a healthy way? Or was it quietly nudging an entire generation to see them as romantic, inevitable, and aspirational? In the whole mythos of Friends, Monica is not the only person who has an age gap relationship. Let's start with the one I hate the most, and that is Ross and Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a 20-year-old undergrad student, while Ross is a college professor, probably somewhere in his mid-30s. Not a huge age gap, but he's a professor at the university she goes to. From a purely comedic angle, the show leans into the awkwardness. Ross trying to seem young, keeping up with college parties, being terrified of her father, which is played by Bruce Willis. But underneath the slapstick, there's a real issue. He holds academic power over her. Even if he's not a direct professor, he's still a faculty member at her school, creating a clear imbalance. The show barely addresses this. It's all jokes and no real reckoning. And beyond that, she's in her early 20s. There's a lot of growth that happens in those early 20s, whereas he's already established as a person. Then there's Monica and Ethan. She meets him at a diner, they hit it off, and he tells her that he's a college senior. They sleep together, and later he reveals that he's actually a senior in high school. The reaction? As I'm sure we all would be, Monica is horrified. She immediately breaks things off, because ew. And the show treats it as a shocking mistake that crosses the line. Importantly, it's one of the few times the show actually calls out this inappropriate dynamic. And as for the legality of everything, I don't know how old Ethan was supposed to be. If he's a senior, I would imagine 17 to 18. And beyond that, I don't want to speculate too much about the age. However, it is still inappropriate. And I don't want to blame Ethan because he hid his age, but I also want to give some grace to Monica because she was lied to. and she still took the onus on herself and broke up the relationship when she found out the truth. On the other hand, you have Joey, who is constantly dating a revolving door of young women. These women are often models or aspiring actresses, and most are several years younger than him. But those relationships aren't really serious. They're portrayed as shallow, sexual, and disposable. Joey's charm excuses it, I guess. And the age gaps are never really questioned. It's just kind of like, oh, it's Joey. They're not romanticized, but they're also not scrutinized. I also want to scrutinize Joey because I have a moment here. They also never talk about the fact that he sexually harassed Monica the first time they ever met. So I also want to quickly touch on Ted and Rachel.
Hi, so I don't know why, but I kept calling Tag Ted. A lot of the script I wrote from memory, and I just guess I didn't check his name. So I'm fact checking myself here. His name is Tag. So if you hear me say Ted and you're like, no, that's not it, Leslie, you're correct. His name is Tag, not Ted. So ignore me saying Ted the whole time.
So Rachel is Ted's boss, and they start a romantic relationship. And while he goes in and out of her employment, it still is inappropriate because she does hold a power dynamic over him, and they constantly make jokes about her. They break up because she turns 30, which, why are you upset that you turned 30? It was a different time, I know, but I'm excited about turning 30. Nonetheless, there still is an imbalance because Rachel is Ted's boss. What we're left with is a pattern in Friends. When older men date younger women, it's played as a joke or as a true romance. But when women unknowingly or knowingly date younger men, it's messy and it borders on illegal. And when the age gap is framed with sincerity, like Monica and Richard, it's painted as complex and noble. That says a lot about the double standards and gender dynamic at play within the show. So why is Monica and Richard's relationship framed so differently? Is it the writing? Is it the fact that Tom Selleck radiates calm maturity? Or is it that Monica, being assertive and grown, is portrayed as being capable of handling it? Age gap relationships aren't automatically wrong, but context is everything. Were there prior power imbalances? Were they a teacher-student relationship, boss-employee, adult-child? When you have the case of Ross and Elizabeth, it was inappropriate because he was still an authority and could possibly upset her academic standing. When it comes to Rachel and Ted, absolutely there was power imbalance because she was his boss. Other aspects that could show if a relationship is imbalanced is one person developing mentally or emotionally while the other one holds more life experience, more control, and has more to say. I would definitely say for Ross and Elizabeth, she was at a stage where she is constantly changing into her adulthood. He also has more access to money, he has more prestige, and has more say in the relationship because of it. While they make jokes about him trying to act young to keep up with her, she doesn't have power in that relationship when he can whisk her away, when he can buy her something nice that a younger guy couldn't, when he could change faculty's ideas about her. While it's played up that he can't keep up with youth, that doesn't mean she holds power in the relationship. Also, is there pressure or coercion or emotional manipulation within the relationship? I don't necessarily think that there is a relationship that I pointed out that has any of these. However, it's important to recognize those signs of pressure, coercion, or emotional manipulation. There could have been a time where Ross coerced Elizabeth into doing something for him, like something either sexual, financial, academic, if it meant that it helped her standings. If he had asked her to change her degree so that way they've got more time together, whether it was don't go to that party because I don't want you to see those guys, there were opportunities to manipulate her. All of these questions help clarify whether an age gap relationship is equitable or exploitative. And then there is grooming. Grooming isn't just about age, it's about control. It's about slowly establishing dominance over someone who may not yet know how to resist it. It often involves emotional manipulation, dependency, and the blurring of boundaries over time. Power imbalance is its backbone. When I was first thinking about this, I was trying to remember if there was anything that would have pointed to grooming, and I don't think there was. However, I do think in conversations about age gap relationships, it's important to point out that grooming can happen within age gap relationships, or any relationship, quite honestly, that could have some of these aspects. Grooming can happen between people who are 2 years apart, but it's important to think about it when we're thinking about age gap relationships, because that's where it seems to be happening more often. Richard and Monica, it doesn't read as grooming. There's no prior manipulation or setup that we know of. Monica is written as fully in charge of her decisions. Their conversations are honest, their breakup is mutual, but the story does flirt with the discomfort because of the childhood connection and the sheer size of the age gap. In the 1930s and 1950s, age gaps in film were standard. Romantic leads were often 20 plus years apart, with young starlets playing against much older men. It reflects social norms and Hollywood's obsession with youthful women. Actors like Cary Grant often starred opposite women decades younger. Whenever I think about this, I really think about White Christmas. You have Bing Crosby playing against Rosemary Clooney, and she was supposed to be the older sister to Vera Ellen, and she was the youngest in the cast. It's very weird to me. One particularly uncomfortable real-life example was Sue Lyon, who starred as the teenage lead in Lolita of 1962. She was 14. If you read anything about Sue Lyon when it comes to Lolita, it is hard to read, hard to listen to, and can be disturbing. So keep that in mind if you're gonna click any of the things I've listed in the description about Sue Lyon. So Sue started Lolita when she was 14 and was speculated to be briefly in a relationship with producer James B. Harris, which at the time was not viewed as harmful or coercive by Harris's side, but that Lyon was mature enough for a man 18 years her senior, while she was underage. This is now rightfully viewed as disturbing and an example of Hollywood's exploitation of the youth by many. Some quotes that I saw that really stood out to me. Harris said, "We knew we must make Lolita a sex object, where everyone in the audience could understand why everyone would want to jump on her." He also said, "We made sure when we cast her that she was a definite sex object, not something that could be interpreted as being perverted." Goodness gracious. Ugh. I think it's disgusting that they spoke about her this way and that their goal was to make Lolita a sex object when, to my understanding, and a video I watched by Yara Zaid very much spoke about that we're supposed to think Humbert is not great and is perverted and is causing harm to a child. I'm going to link in the description a video by Yara Zaid that talks a lot about Lolita and the movie 13 when it comes to harming children, especially when it comes to exploiting them sexually. And I'm also going to link an article that speaks about her exploitation by Stanley Kubrick and James B. Harris. So now, in 2025, I think we're a little bit more critical. I mean, we're talking about it right now. We notice when a 20-year-old is cast opposite a 45-year-old actor. Shows like Euphoria and movies like Call Me By Your Name have young actors playing opposite older actors, and it does bring into question conversations about age and consent and power. The White Lotus even drew attention to this meta-commentary in season 3 with a casting of Walton Goggins and Amy Lou Wood in the subplot that critiques Hollywood's history of pairing older men with younger women, encouraging viewers to question what we've come to expect with an on-screen relationship. Goggins plays Rick, a powerful Hollywood producer with a complicated dynamic relationship with a much younger woman named Chelsea, played by Wood. While the show doesn't make the relationship overtly predatory, it leans into the discomfort, forcing audiences to confront how mentorship, ambition, and proximity to power can muddy the waters of consent and autonomy. And Hollywood still has age gap relationships. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, George and Alma Clooney. I just realized I talk about his mom earlier. Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Sarah Paulson and Holland Taylor. But one I often think of, and while they are no longer together, it was overtly uncomfortable, and that was Billie Eilish and Jesse Rutherford. With Eilish a Gen Z star, the reaction was loud and divisive, especially because she was just barely past 18 when the relationship started. Rutherford had been in the music scene for years, and some fans pointed out that he had known her since she was still a teenager. Not to mention, she even said that she was a big fan of him, that she thought he was the hottest person alive whenever she was a young teen. So it's a little uncomfortable, even though she has money, privilege, power, to have her in a relationship with someone who's still more established than her. The relationship raised questions about influence, maturity, possibly grooming, especially given the timing of when the relationship began. And the backlash intensified when they posted a controversial Halloween picture. Billie dressed up as a baby and Jesse dressed up as an old man. Many saw it as them mocking the public's concerns rather than taking them seriously. This brought up comparisons to earlier celebrity age gap controversies, like Wilmer Valderrama's relationships. He famously dated Lindsay Lohan when she was 17 and he was 24, and later dated Demi Lovato when she was 17 and he was 30. In both cases, fans have since revisited these timelines with concern, noting how young and vulnerable these women were, especially given their later struggles with mental health and addiction. To my knowledge, given that I was much younger, and even though I look up stuff, we have the veil of 2025 over it, to my knowledge, these relationships were not seen with a lot of issue. There wasn't a lot of widespread backlash. But in hindsight, they're now viewed as classic examples of predatory grooming masked by industry fame and charisma. So what makes the difference? Power dynamics, transparency, mutual respect, and how the relationship is framed both in real life and on screen.
So I didn't like how I originally said all this, and I rewrote some of the script for this part. So what do the academics say? The Journal of Social and Personal Relationships from 2019, the study of commitment in age gap heterosexual romantic relationships, they saw that that age gap heterosexual relationships that were romantic, they tended to not be significantly different between age gap and age similar couples, suggesting factors like emotional support and communication play a more critical role in relationship success than age difference alone. Encountering that from the feminist media studies, it showed how media representation often idealizes older male, younger female relationships, while older women with younger partners is less favorable in a lot of media settings. These discussions highlight the reinforcement of patriarchal norms and the sexualization or ridicule of older women in such dynamics. And finally, Jennifer J. Harmon, PhD, it does a lot of research on power dynamics, specifically this one research on power dynamics and intimate partner relationships, chapter within that book, the impact of multi-level sources of power in intimate relationship functioning, from 2019. The chapter talks about how structural inequities like economic dependence, emotional immaturity, or positional authority make a bigger impact on relationship than age. So it really more depends on the power dynamic of the relationship rather than age itself. So those points we talked about earlier make a big difference more than age actually does. However, age is a considerable thing to consider. It's something to consider because age often means you typically have more economic power, more education, or life experience. Okay, I think that's all I have to say. Hi. I actually like this angle. Back to past me.
And when grooming is involved, resources like RAIN and the National Center for Youth Law offers tools to identify, intervene, and support survivors. I'll link those below. Was Monica and Richard's relationship wrong? No, not necessarily. But it's complicated. It was built on mutual respect. But it also came from a man with a direct connection to her childhood, which makes it feel complicated, even if it wasn't coercive. Their story was honest, it didn't end in fantasy, and it ended because they wanted different things, and that, maybe more than anything, is why it still hurts. Age gap relationships aren't inherently toxic, but they demand more scrutiny, more conversations, more honesty about what's really going on beneath the surface. Whether it's watching 90s sitcoms or living in 2025, we owe it to ourselves and to each other to ask better questions about what love looks like and who holds the power. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for future videos. If you know anyone that might enjoy this video, please share it with them. I would definitely appreciate that. And if you enjoyed this video, you probably will enjoy my last video where I talk about Elon Musk's Optimus robot that eerily reminds me of The Veld by Ray Bradbury. I hope you have a wonderful day, and goodbye.